Welcome back. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Chandna.
And I'm Jyotsna Kumar. On the show today, U.S. President Donald Trump announced he shelved plans to attack Iran's power plants in a stunning about-turn sparked by what he said were very good talks with unidentified Iranian officials to bring an end to the war. But Iran is pushing back, flatly denying any negotiations with Washington. In fact, Supreme Leader's advisor has just said that the war will continue until Iran is compensated. We'll bring you all the details on the developments on this on World DNA.
Also on World DNA, Prime Minister Netanyahu said that Trump believes there is an opportunity to turn what Netanyahu called major military gains into an agreement that would safeguard our vital interests for the Israelis. However, Netanyahu said that Israel will continue the attacks in Iran and Lebanon. We'll bring you the latest on that. Let's start with the headlines first.
Volodymyr Zelensky says Ukraine's military intelligence has irrefutable evidence that Russia continues to provide intelligence to Iran, warning that such activity can only prolong the war in West Asia.
I've directed the Department of War to temporarily postpone planned strikes against major energy and electricity targets in Iran.
Donald Trump says US and Iran held very good talks after abruptly shelving plans for fresh attacks on Iranian power infrastructure, even as Washington's ally Israel vows to keep up the strikes on the Islamic Republic.
Tehran denies holding any negotiations with the United States with Iran's parliament speaker, Ghalibaf, saying no talks are underway, accuses Trump of trying to manipulate oil and financial markets.
Netanyahu says he spoke with Trump, who believes military gains in Iran could be turned into negotiated agreements protecting Israel's interests after Trump shelves plans to strike Iranian power plants.
Blasts heard over Jerusalem after 2 waves of Iranian missile fire, prompting Israel to deploy search and rescue teams to a damaged building. Missile launches confirmed by IDF shortly after Trump claimed talks with Iran.
Syrian army says one of its bases in the northeast targeted in a missile strike from neighboring Iraq, while Iraqi officials blame a local armed group for firing 7 Arash-4 rockets towards the base in Hasakeh region.
A series of strikes hit Beirut's southern suburbs, targeting the Hezbollah stronghold, as Israel's military says it captures 2 members of the Iran-backed group in southern Lebanon.
At least 66 people killed as a military Hercules plane carrying 125 people crashes shortly after takeoff from southwestern Colombia's Puerto Leguizamo, scattering wreckage in the jungle.
Oil prices rise on Tuesday as markets reassess supply risks after Iran denies U.S. talks to ease the conflict. Brent is trading around $102 per barrel, and U.S. crude is nearly $91 a barrel. Despite earlier declines, tensions in West Asia continue to fuel uncertainty. And U.S. President Donald Trump claims back-channel talks with a senior Iranian official has yielded major points of agreement.
Well, Iran denies having any such contact with the Americans, calling it a trick to cool the markets and buy time for themselves. Trump had given Iran a 48-hour ultimatum to reopen the Strait of Hormuz shipping lane. But hours before that deadline, Trump fired a Truth Social post he extended it by 5 days, saying US and Iran have held very good and productive conversations in recent days.
We have had very, very strong talks. We'll see where they lead. We have major points of agreement. I would say almost all points of agreement. Perhaps that hasn't been conveyed. The communication, as you know, has been blown to pieces. They're unable to talk to each other. But we've had very strong talks. Mr. Witkoff and Mr. Kushner had them.
Iran was quick to deny Trump's claims. Sources cited in Iranian media said no direct or indirect talks were taking place. Trump blamed it on Iran's broken and battered communications.
Well, they're going to have to get themselves better public relations people. We have had very, very strong talks. We'll see where they lead. We have major points of agreement. I would say almost all points of agreement. Perhaps that hasn't been conveyed. The communication, as you know, has been blown to pieces. They're unable to talk to each other.
Reports also said that the US negotiators may meet an Iranian delegation for talks in Pakistan, with Vice President J.D. Vance possibly joining in the talks. White House spokeswoman Carolyn Leavitt did not deny these reports. Trump, however, indicated that the talks may happen over the phone.
So the discussions took place yesterday. They went into yesterday evening. They want very much to make a deal. We'd like to make a deal too. We're going to get together today by probably phone because it's very hard to find a country. It's very hard for them to get out, I guess. But we'll at some point very, very soon meet. We're doing a 5-day period. We'll see how that goes. And if it goes well, we're going to end up with settling this. Otherwise, we'll just keep bombing our little hearts out.
However, Iranian Foreign Ministry denied any negotiations. It said friendly countries recently sent messages to Iran indicating U.S. desire to begin talks, but Iran has not responded. It also said Iran's stance on the Strait of Hormuz has not changed.
Now, the spokesperson for the Iranian Parliament's National Security and Foreign Policy Committee, Ibrahim Rezai, also put out a statement. He said that Trump was either lying or, quote-unquote, well, talking nonsense. That's what he says. Another senior Iranian official, he says that they denied Trump's claim that the country's parliament speaker, Mohammad Baghir Ghalibaf, said no negotiations have been held with the US, and he called Trump's assertions fake news meant to manipulate financial and oil markets.
Now, interestingly, the U.S. media outlet Axios had identified Ghalibaf as the official who was talking to Trump's envoy, citing a non-named Israeli official. And meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he had spoken to Trump. He said Trump thinks a deal is possible, but vowed to continue striking Iran and Lebanon. All right, to discuss more, we are now being joined live by Lynn O'Donnell from Sydney in Australia. She's a journalist and an author. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure having you on the broadcast. Let me begin by the statements and the timing of the statement. What we know is that the statement came right before 7 a.m. when the markets open, and these 5 days are, of course, when the markets will close on Friday, after Friday. What do you think of this particular time period? And Trump saying that they've been talking back-channel talks and Iran denying them.
Well, it's quite likely that Trump is talking to the markets, but it's also quite likely that there has been some communication with Iranian officials whom he hasn't named about reopening the Strait of Hormuz. So he did issue the 48-hour ultimatum over the reopening of the strait, which is tied clearly to oil flows. And as the deadline hit, he paused strikes and signalled talks, and oil prices immediately dropped by more than 10%, and prices of stocks on Wall Street went up. So that tells you that the real dynamic is that the deadline wasn't just military pressure, it was also market signalling. And there is a deeper problem here. The war has already damaged energy infrastructure, disrupted global oil supply, as we know, except to chosen and approved customers of Iran, China, India, Russia. Meaning that prices are staying structurally high, and the International Energy Agency has warned of a major threat to the global economy. So the bottom line is that it looks less like a climb down and more like a tactical delay, as you said, 5 days market to market, to stabilise the markets and buy time while keeping the military leverage intact. They're not backing down on the threats. As Trump said, they're going to keep bombing their little hearts out if they don't get what they want, but we don't know what it is that they want, and we don't know where their message is hitting in Iran.
Lynn, it's interesting you mentioned that he was talking to the markets. I just want to take it further from there before we get into the diplomatic statements that came in. Do you feel speaking to the markets is more important to Trump at this point? Is that hurting the US more than what's actually happening on the battlefield?
Oh, I think there's an awful lot going on there. As we've talked about before, Trump is heading into the midterms in November. High oil prices are very, very unpopular with American consumers. He was elected on a platform of bringing prices down, prices of food, creating jobs, keeping fuel prices stable. And all of a sudden, we've got wars up the wazoo where he's basically counteracting and contradicting by his own actions what he was elected to do. So, yes, I think he's talking to the markets. And the most important constituency for any political leader is the domestic one, and especially so for Donald Trump, because of the midterm elections, the pressure that he is facing going into them. So, yeah, I think sensibly he's speaking to the domestic consumer and the domestic markets, but also the oil price is international. He needs the oil price to also look as if it's coming down, because he's facing international political pressure, as we know, trying to call in other countries to send military support to get the oil flowing through the Strait of Hormuz, and facing a lot of pushback on that. So he needs the oil price to come down, because every political leader in the world is facing pressure from their consumers and their constituencies.
Since you mentioned midterm elections, would you call this decision by Trump a strategic win for him? Because yes, were talks going on before, and last year when the attack was happening? Yes, even now, talks are being happening, or as being claimed. Do you think would this be a strategic win for Trump, considering the fact the damage that has been done with the Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei eliminated, many top leaders being eliminated? How would this look for Trump? Is this a strategic win going into the midterm elections?
The only way we can tell is if the price of oil at the fuel pump for American consumers comes down. We're 3 weeks into this war, and prices have gone up across the world by 30%, and a slight fallback is just selling pressure. It's the markets reacting as the way markets do. You sell and take profit on signals, but we haven't seen it come back down to where it was 3 weeks ago. We're going to see these fuel price increases at every stage of the consumption. At every stage of consumption, it's food, it's clothes, it's everything you do. We're hearing about fuel premiums being excuse me, being added to flight tickets, prices just within Europe of $6,000 just to get from one country to another. This is incredible leverage for at the consumer level for providers of goods and services. And I don't see any strategic win in this at all. Even claims of talking with Iranian leaders, they're denying it. We have no reason to disbelieve that because he's not saying who he's talking to, and we're not seeing any pullback by the Iranians on the leverage that they have. To be quite frank with you, no, I see no strategic win here.
Understood. Lynn, let me come to this statement that came out from Joe Kent, the former director of National Counter-Terrorism Center, who had resigned owing to the Iran war and what's happening there and lack of an objective that he sees in it. He said that until Israel is reined in, there can be no de-escalation. That's pretty much the crux of that post from him. Do you see it the same way?
I think, what he said was no de-escalation without reining in Israel, as you've just outlined. And I think that in practical terms, that's probably correct. Israel is pursuing the war on its own terms, with its own aims, which is essentially degrading Iran's military and strategic capabilities. And that creates some escalation momentum outside of US control. So even as Trump talks of de-escalation, Israeli strikes have continued, Iranian retaliation has also continued. So you get a structural contradiction. Washington signals restraint while Israel sustains the pressure. Now, how much they're talking to each other, we don't know yet, but it seems that one side is undermining any credible talk of a ceasefire pathway at this stage. So de-escalation requires synchronized restraint from all sides, and right now I don't see that existing, which plays into what Kent says. Yeah,
understood.
Yeah, and I see you mentioned Israel there. Of course, we're going to come back to you, and we'll talk about Netanyahu's statements right in. But we'll be taking a very short break, Lynn, and we'll have you back with more insights. Welcome back. We are talking with our guest, a journalist and author, Lynn O'Donnell, joining us from Australia. Lynn, thank you so much for staying with us. We were talking about Netanyahu. Now, he came without a statement right after saying that he sees that, he said that Trump sees a potential deal that would protect Israel's vital interests. Now, what according to you would be vital interests? And if at all we see some kind of ceasefire happening or de-escalation, do you think Israel is in a mood here to stop its attack on Iran, and not just Iran, but also Lebanon?
Oh, well, as we were just talking about, Israel's strategic aims here are the containment of Iran. Israel is surrounded by Iranian proxies, and for decades, Iran has been sending its proxy terrorist organizations against Israel, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, as well as its own IRGC. And so what Netanyahu has said for a very long time is that his goal, his long-term goal, has been the, let's say, annihilation. It's hyperbolic, but it's probably apt here, of the threat that Iran and its proxies pose to the survival of Israel. As we know, Iran's constitution contains the commitment to the destruction of Israel as a state. And the elimination of Jewish people wherever they are, not Zionists, Jewish people wherever they are. We saw overnight in the United Kingdom the firebombing of a Jewish NGO, the destruction of their ambulances, which was claimed by a previously unknown Iranian-linked group. Iran hasn't stopped. Its threat is global. And so Netanyahu's aim of removing this threat against Jews and against the supporters of Jews and against the Israeli state, I don't think is going to go away ever, let alone anytime soon. That's his goal.
Lynn, also let me bring in a statement that came in from the former Supreme Leader of Iran's representative and a former Iran nuclear negotiator. This is Saeed Jalili. He said that this is a sign that the US, especially Trump, he is retreating. And I'll just quickly go over it. He said first there was that the Strait of Hormuz must be opened. There was a 48-hour deadline for that. Then I will secure the ships and escort them. Of course, that's a statement that came in earlier from Trump, weeks ago. That never happened. And then there is also the more recent development that I want to manage the Strait of Hormuz jointly with Iran. Now, for Saeed Jalili, he sees this as a retreat from Trump. Do you see it the same way? How would you read into it any further than what is said in this tweet?
Well, President Donald Trump has earned himself a reputation for backing down from his most overt threats. So it's fair enough for the Iranians to read this as a retreat, as a back down, as a victory for themselves and their own strategy of maximum pressure, because that's essentially what they're doing. They're showing, and we saw those missiles that people were quite really, analysts, observers, military experts were really quite surprised to see Iranian missiles with a range of far more than the 2,000 miles that had been thought of before. So Iran is showing its own teeth. And I think pushing back against Trump and saying clearly you're losing is a part of that. This is a very unpopular war. It was unilateral by Donald Trump. He didn't even tell his cabinet about it. And so I think that the Iranians are going to be very cleverly framing it and framing any back down, strategic or otherwise, by Trump as a loss for them and a victory, a loss for Trump and a victory for them. Trump plays zero sum, and the Iranians are showing that they can play that game too.
And also, that being said, well, let's talk about allies. Now, we have reports that Keir Starmer actually has come out with a statement that he was aware of these talks between U.S. and Iran. And this also comes, interestingly, after Ruta had just came out with a statement that, and I'm just quoting him here, I know the president was angry because he feels that European and other allies have been too slow. The good news is, since Thursday, a group of 22 countries have come together to implement his vision of making sure that the Strait of Hormuz is free. Now, it's not just, of course, Trump came out with a statement, Iran has denied, but Starmer saying that he knew about these talks says something very different, that there have been talks happening. How do you read into this?
Well, Starmer isn't saying that there have been direct talks between Donald Trump and Iranian leaders. We've also seen overnight that the Pakistanis are getting involved as a go-between. I'd say that they're doing that under pressure from Saudi Arabia and others in the neighbourhood. But there is a broad desire to have hostilities end and for the Strait of Hormuz to open up so that everybody's getting oil, not just Iran's allies and supporters, as I've said before, China, Russia and India. So it is quite likely that there's a lot of back channel going on between Europe, along with the United Kingdom. Pakistan, as I said, is involved. Everybody wants this over. The nature of the talks and the level of the talks is what we don't know. Who's involved? What are they talking about? What are the terms? It would be very surprising, as I said, if there was no contact at all.
Lynn, always a pleasure speaking with you. You always break down complex matters in a manner that is understandable by anybody just tuning in as well. Would love to discuss this further with you in time to come.
Thank you very much.
Now moving on, Colombian military has said that the death toll from a military plane crash has risen to at least 66.
According to officials, a military Hercules C-130 transport plane carrying 125 troops and crew crashed shortly after taking off near the southern border with Ecuador. Now, the aircraft crashed and erupted in flames, triggering explosions from ammunition on board.
Unfortunately, we had an air accident at 9:50 in Puerto Leguizamo, Putumayo. It involved a Colombian Aerospace Force Hercules C-130, registration number 1016. It was covering the Puerto Leguizamo-Puerto Asis route, transporting soldiers from our national army.
The deadly crash injured nearly over 70 soldiers, with many airlifted from the crash site and rushed to hospitals across the country in ambulances, including in capital Bogota.
We treated 81 injured people here at the Maria Angelines Hospital and at the Naval Clinic. They are all now being flown to Bogota for more specialized care. Unfortunately, we have 33 young people in the municipal morgue. We continue working at the Unified Command Post to achieve better security conditions and community safety for the residents of the municipality as well.
Describing the crash as a horrific accident that should never have happened, Colombian President Petro urged medical authorities in the military hospital to extend care to those who cannot be transported. He added in the social media post that he had been trying to renew the military fleet for years, but has been hindered by bureaucratic difficulties.
Pretty far away. It was coming over here, but it was quite a distance away. I just saw it disappear into the mountain, and then I heard the crash.
As rescue efforts remain underway and an investigation has been ordered into the crash, possibilities of an attack by numerous armed groups have been ruled out. All right, we'll be slipping into a very short break on World DNA. On the other side, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has accused Russia of providing intelligence support to Iran and fueling the ongoing war in West Asia. We'll get you all the details on the other side. Stay tuned.
Campaigns, elections, alliances, controversies, and power play. Beyond the noise and rhetoric, no election, no ballot issue too small. Stories that analyze global and domestic politics, more than just headlines. A dedicated show with varied perspectives, expert take, citizens' voices, detailed ground reports, and in-depth coverage from political corridors of the world. This is Race to Power, only on WION. World is one.
Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Crime is your front row seat to darkness. Five states, one powerful voice. From Tamil Nadu to West Bengal. Kerala to Assam. Every vote shapes the future. Get the election pulse only on WION.
Welcome back. You're watching World DNA with Jyotsna. I'm Shivan. Lots more to discuss. Let's start with the headlines.
Reports claim U.S. negotiators Witkoff and Kushner may meet Iranian delegation in Pakistan this week, with the Vice President J.D. Vance possibly joining. White House doesn't deny reports. Pakistan's PM speaks with Iran's president, offering help for peace.
Volodymyr Zelensky says Ukraine's military intelligence has irrefutable evidence that Russia continues to provide intelligence to Iran, warning that such activity can only prolong the war in West Asia.
I've directed the Department of War to temporarily postpone planned strikes against major energy and electricity targets in Iran.
Donald Trump says U.S. and Iran held very good talks after abruptly shelving plans for fresh attacks on Iranian power infrastructure, even as Washington's ally, Israel, vows to keep up strikes on the Islamic Republic.
Tehran denies holding any negotiations with the United States, with Iran's Parliament Speaker Ghalibaf saying no talks are underway, accuses Trump of trying to manipulate oil and financial markets.
Iran launches missiles at northern Israel, prompting Israeli air defenses to respond, while a loud blast reported over Jerusalem. Emergency services report no immediate casualties, but send paramedics to an area of impact.
Syrian army says one of its bases in the northeast was targeted in a missile strike from neighboring Iraq, while Iraqi officials blame a local armed group for firing 7 rockets towards the base in Hasakeh region.
At least 66 people killed as a military Hercules plane carrying 125 people crashes shortly after takeoff from southwestern Colombia's Puerto Leguizamo, scattering wreckage in the jungle.
London police to deploy over 260 more officers and increase armed patrols to protect Jewish community after the arson attack on 4 volunteer ambulances near a synagogue. Counter-terrorism units to investigate the incident.
Japan's core inflation slows to 1.6% in February, its lowest since 2022, due to energy subsidies. However, rising oil prices due to tensions in West Asia may push inflation higher, prompting government measures including fuel subsidies and oil reserve releases.
And the Israeli Prime Minister has said that the US President sees a chance of reaching a deal with Iran.
And this after the two leaders held a telephonic conversation on Monday. And Trump has claimed back-channel talks with a senior Iranian official has yielded major points of agreement. And even as Iran denies any contact, calling it a trick to cool the markets and buy time, Netanyahu said that Trump believes that U.S.-Israeli military gains in Iran could be converted into a negotiation agreement.
President Trump believes there is a possibility to leveraging the mighty achievements obtained by the IDF, Israel Defense Forces, and the U.S. military in order to realize the goals of the war in a deal that will preserve our vital interests.
The Israeli Prime Minister, however, vowed to continue strikes both in Iran and in Lebanon.
We are smashing the missile program and the nuclear program, and we continue to severely strike Hezbollah. Just a few days ago, we eliminated 2 more nuclear scientists, and there is more to come. We will safeguard our vital interests in any situation.
Before Trump, Netanyahu spoke with U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance and reportedly discussed efforts to renew talks between the U.S. and Iran. According to reports, Vance and Netanyahu discussed the framework of a potential agreement between the U.S. and Iran, including key conditions that could bring the fighting to an end.
The war is in its 4th week as the U.S. and Israel continue to pound Iran, while Iran carries out counter-strikes. A loud blast rang out over Jerusalem early on Tuesday as the Israeli military sent search and rescue teams to a damaged building following 2 rounds of Iranian missile fire. It comes 2 days after attacks on Arad and Dimona in southern Israel, in which there were over 100 casualties. Amid claims and counterclaims of possible talks between Washington, D.C. and Tehran, Iran's residents have reacted to Trump's big statements. The general sentiment is of distrust. Listen in.
We should not back down either because he has not held back against us. His smallest crime was the Dina naval vessel. Our young men were burned alive. Because of this crime, we should never back down. If we trust him, we lose. In recent times, through his actions, he has shown what his brotherhood means. He burned everything, the good and the bad, together.
We can never really judge or understand what goes on behind the scenes of politicians. But whether they want to negotiate or not is something we have been dealing with for years. Today there are talks, tomorrow there are talks, and the day after something else happens. I doubt there will be any real negotiations between these governments. As for what comes next, I do not know, but I find it unlikely.
This is a game he is playing. They call him a gambler, meaning he is trying to manipulate public opinion and deceive people. He does not realize that the people of Iran will not be misled by these statements.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has accused Russia of providing intelligence support to Iran and fueling the ongoing war in West Asia.
In his nightly address, Zelensky said that Ukraine's defense intelligence has irrefutable evidence that Russia was helping the Iranian regime stay afloat and prolonging the conflict with the US and Israel.
There is growing evidence that the Russians continue to provide the Iranian regime with intelligence support. This is clearly destructive activity, and it must be stopped, as it only leads to further destabilization. All decent states are interested in guaranteeing security and preventing a larger crisis. Markets are already reacting negatively, and this is significantly complicating the fuel situation in many countries. Thus, by helping the Iranian regime stay afloat and strike more accurately, the Russians are effectively prolonging the war. There must be a response.
Zelensky added that the cooperation between Russia and Iran is worsening the global fuel situation and destabilizing markets. Russia has meanwhile called for a political and diplomatic settlement to the war in West Asia after President Trump claimed the US and Iran held productive conversations about ending hostilities. In a call with Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov called for immediate cessation of hostilities and a political settlement that takes into account the legitimate interests of all parties involved, above all, Iran. Low-cost drones with reduced radar cross-sections are increasingly challenging advanced air defense systems.
And Iran claims to have carried out a drone attack on Ben Gurion Airport. Our next report decodes how critical infrastructure like airports are facing new vulnerabilities in the 4th week of Iran war. Take a look.
A silent predator hovers over Israeli skies. It stealthily flies thousands of kilometers targeting strategic locations. Its only aim is to carry out deep strike missions. Iran has unleashed Arash-2 drone. Tehran claims it has successfully targeted Israel's Ben Gurion airport, the country's busiest aviation hub and a critical economic lifeline. Tehran's latest round of strike highlights the growing role of unmanned systems. The Arash-2 is not an average drone. It's an advanced and more destructive version of Arash-1 and Kian. This kamikaze drone has a 2,000-kilometer range loitering munition. This range enables launches from within Iranian territory while still reaching Israeli targets. The drone's lower radar cross-section allows it to evade detection and penetrate enemy air defense systems, making it difficult to intercept. Iranian officials describe Ben Gurion Airport as a strategic target. Tehran claims the strike has achieved its objective, but Israel is yet to fully confirm the scale of damage. Drone warfare is rewriting the rules of the war. A $20,000 drone is challenging billion-dollar defense systems. The battlefield has changed, and the skies over West Asia are more dangerous than ever. Iranian armed forces say they have so far carried out 74 waves of missile and drone strikes on Israeli and US military sites across the Gulf. Iran has now started to fire more powerful missiles with heavier payloads. The volume of missiles have gone down as the war is in its fourth week. On the other hand, the American-Israeli forces continue to carry out precision strikes to destroy Iran's military capabilities. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And heavy rain and dangerous flooding are hitting parts of the Gulf states.
Well, the United Arab Emirates is seeing sudden showers, strong winds and low visibility disrupting traffic in major cities. In Oman, the situation is more severe. At least 5 people have died in flooding since the weekend. In South Al-Batina, vehicles were swept away. Dozens of people have been rescued across affected areas.
Rain and unstable weather swept across the UAE, with Dubai and Abu Dhabi seeing scattered showers and slower traffic on key roads, while strong winds up to 50 kilometers an hour kicked up dust and reduced visibility for drivers. Authorities are urging caution as conditions can change quickly.
Northern and eastern regions, including Fujairah and Ras Al Khaimah, are seeing heavier cloud cover and more consistent rainfall. Meteorologists say a combination of low pressure and upper atmosphere changes is driving this system.
Authorities in both countries are warning residents to avoid flooded roads and low-lying areas. Unstable weather is expected to continue over the coming days, bringing more rain, strong winds, and rough sea conditions.
And a remarkable wave of public solidarity is sweeping across the Kashmir Valley.
And this is where thousands of residents have come forward to donate cash and valuables for the people of Iran. In the aftermath of the recent conflict in the region, while there are no official figures about the donation, organizers estimate that the donations could have already reached around 500 crore Indian rupees. Here's a report on that. Take a look.
Donation centers have been set up across all districts of Kashmir, with many collection points organized in Shia Imam Baras, From urban hubs to remote villages, contributions have been pouring in from every corner of the Kashmir division. Residents, including men and women alike, have donated generously, offering not only cash and bank checks, but also gold and silver jewelry. In fact, copper utensils and even children's piggy banks.
People have gathered here in large numbers, and it's not just the Shia community. The Sunni community is also showing strong support for Iran. This is not just about politics, it is purely a humanitarian effort.
Let me clear one thing first, that Iran has not appealed any kind of donation from us. We are giving this money, copper or whatever. We are giving this out of passion, out of love and out of curiosity, because we know that Iran is at the right side of history.
Many Kashmiris, particularly from the Shia community, cite cultural and religious ties with Iran as a motivating factor.
Donations are coming in the form of cash, copper items, gold jewelry and more. Even small children are contributing with their piggy banks. So far, contributions worth around 500 crore Indian rupees have been collected, and the drive is continuing.
The donations campaign follows a period of unrest in the valley. After the killing of the supreme leader of Iran, which had triggered widespread protests, authorities had imposed restrictions in several areas at the time. However, as tensions eased, the focus of public expression appears to have shifted from protest to humanitarian assistance. Organizers say the primary goal of the campaign is to assist civilians affected by the recent conflict involving Iran, Israel and the United States.
Donations are pouring in for Iran from every nook and corner of the Kashmir Valley. We're right now in the Budgam district of Kashmir Valley, where you can see this is a donation center where you can see people have donated their copper vessels, cash, jewelry, whatever valuables they have at their places. This donation is mostly done by the Shia community in the Kashmir Valley, but it's also been supported by the Sunnis living across the Kashmir division. The main motive of this donation is that the destruction that has taken place in the Iran, the Kashmiri people have come forward to give their support, and these are the scenes not only in the Budgam district but also in various parts of the Kashmir Valley, from North Kashmir's Baramulla area, from Central Kashmir's Budgam, as well as in South Kashmir. We've seen people coming together and donating for Iran, and also telling the people of Iran that Kashmiris stand with them. With video journalist Firoz, Idris Lone for WION World is One.
Now, the Strait of Hormuz has become a critical choke point in the ongoing tussle between the US and Iran.
And now it's important to understand the magnitude of this disruption, because Hormuz closure doesn't just slow trade, it shakes the very foundation of global energy security.
At current oil prices of $105 to $110 per barrel, the daily crude passing through Hormuz could be worth over $2 billion. But the real cost goes far beyond that.
A sudden disruption can trigger an immediate 10 to 30% hike, 30% spike in oil prices, pushing crude even higher. This ripples across the global economy, raising transport costs, increasing manufacturing expenses and fueling inflation worldwide. From airlines to agriculture, every sector feels the shock.
Now, the true cost of a Hormuz shutdown lies in its cascading impact. Disrupted supply chains, surging freight costs, and panic in financial markets can amplify losses multiple times over. Fertilizer shipments, petrochemicals, and industrial inputs all face bottlenecks. The result is a global economic hit of $10 to $20 billion in just one day. And if the disruption stretches longer, the risk multiplies.
They may be nearly invisible, yet impossible to ignore. We're talking about mosquitoes here. They don't just bite randomly, they hunt with precision.
And now science is now revealing how they decide who to attack next. Our next story brings the details. Take a look.
You step outside for a few minutes, nothing seems unusual. But somewhere nearby, a mosquito has already made a decision. You are the target. This is not chance, it is calculation. Scientists now say mosquitoes follow a multi-step detection system to find their victims. The first signal is carbon dioxide. Every time you breathe out, you release a plume into the air. Mosquitoes can detect this from a distance and begin tracking it. That is just the beginning. As they move closer, heat becomes the next clue. The warmth of your body helps them zero in. Then comes the final trigger, your skin. According to research published in Science Daily, mosquitoes rely on specific sensory cues to decide whether to land and bite. They combine smell, temperature, and even moisture to confirm a host. It is like a lock and key system. If all signals match, the attack begins. But here is where it gets more interesting. Not everyone is equally attractive to mosquitoes. Some people are simply tastier. Studies suggest body odor plays a major role. Your skin produces a unique mix of chemicals, influenced by bacteria living on it. Certain compounds make some individuals far more appealing to mosquitoes than others. Blood type may also play a part. Some research indicates mosquitoes show a preference for people with type O blood. Sweat is another factor. Lactic acid, uric acid, and other compounds released through sweat can act as strong attractants. This is why people who have just exercised often get bitten more. Even clothing color matters. Darker colors like black and red make you more visible to mosquitoes, increasing your chances of being targeted. In short, mosquitoes are not guessing. They are analyzing every breath, every drop of sweat, every chemical signal, and once you fit the profile, they move in.
All right, with that, we call a wrap to World Day for today. We'll have more news and updates on the other side. We leave you with some climate stories making headlines across the world. Stay tuned. You're watching WION The World.
WION Health Resort is unique, the only one of its kind. Experience the 4 paths of natural wellness: yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy. Each uniquely customized program improves the whole person to make every person whole. Come to WION Health Resort. Make your reservation at WION.com.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION
India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Crime is your front row seat to darkness.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
In West Asia, every move shifts the world's balance. Wars, ceasefires, alliances, power never stands still. From Tehran to Tel Aviv, from Damascus to Doha, the West Asia Post cuts through the chaos to reveal the region that shapes the world. Because what happens in West Asia never stays in West Asia. This is the West Asia Post, the region's story, the world's impact.
Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Crime is your front row seat to darkness.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Thanks for staying with us. You're watching WION World is One. I'm Adhya Janeja. Start with the headlines we're tracking for you at this hour. Tehran denies holding any negotiations with the United States, with Iran's Parliament Speaker Ghalibaf saying no talks are underway, accuses Trump of trying to manipulate oil and financial markets.